Hello again. Hello. Oh, yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You guys really, I was just here. I appreciate it, but it's a little over the top. You can scale it back like 20%. Oh man, it is always weird doing these so close together. And I think last week it was the same kind of thing. Maybe not this close together, but it was still definitely one of those situations where I went live twice within about 30 minutes last week. This time it's like 10 minutes. Uzi E, UT finally got a W. Well, I mean, it was bound to happen eventually. You played Tulsa. That's a good spread offense they've got, but as far as recruiting, I'd be shocked if Tulsa has very many 4 stars, let alone a single 5 like UT gets every year. So, very, very strange in that regard. Can't catch him. I just don't understand why Tom Herman can't seem to get the best out of the Longhorns. I think it's the same thing with why Charlie Strong couldn't get the best out of them. They've got more talent than, frankly, even Oklahoma has year in, year out as far as a recruiting class. Now, maybe next year's OU class is better, at least as far as the rankings I've seen thus far. But it is still definitely a weird situation why Texas can't get the most out of its guys. And it does boil down to coaching. I think that Herman is a good coach. He's not doing a great job showing it thus far. But I think really what Texas needs is someone who will think outside of the box from an offensive perspective. OU was really stagnant for a while there under Stoops as well. And then when they went and got a Lincoln Riley, it turned around. Like we saw that ourselves. And OU, they've been, with Lincoln Riley, they've been to the college football playoff twice now. Once with him as a coordinator and once with him as a coach. So there's no doubt in that regard that if you get a good offensive coordinator, a good offensive mind in there, that you can change things around, get the most out of your recruits. He was putting up numbers when he was coordinating for, what was it, East Carolina? Yeah. So he was putting up numbers, or his players were, I should say, for Lincoln Riley, when he didn't have the recruits. So then he goes to OU where he's got the talent, and he's shown what he can do with it. I mean, it is impressive, and Texas just hasn't found that yet, I feel. And that's part of what has held them back, at least to this point. I do think that they're on the right path to being quote-unquote back, but they're not there yet. So we'll see. I think he's the right guy for the job. I just think he needs to find that next young offensive coordinator who can look at things differently and think outside of the box a little bit more. But part of it is just coaching, because Texas in week 1 against Maryland did not look like they were ready. Way too many mental lapses, and it's frankly just not acceptable. So they're going to have to figure out a way to offset that and, not have that be such a frequent thing, because against Maryland, their defense kept breaking for these plays, and for Maryland's case, it was the jet sweep. Tulsa, I did not watch the Texas game last night, but I do know that obviously they won. So let me pull up the exact details of this game here. Texas won. No, I don't want to see the TCU score. No. God, I love live streams when everything runs smoothly. Texas won 28-21. God, you guys needed that much help to beat Tulsa? I feel like you guys were up big at one point, too, that I saw. So let's see. Sam Ehlinger, 21 of 27, 237, 2 touchdowns, no picks. That's a solid performance, for sure. Especially with as much as he struggled in the second half last week. That's a good response out of him. From the rushing perspective, 18 for 74 for T. Watson. I like that. And then your second backup. Oh, yeah, I know. Texas got good production out of their running game. Ingram gets another 10 for 64 and a touchdown. Ehlinger, 12 for 51. So even he found success in that regard. Receiving core, Humphrey goes 7 for 109. That's really good. Can't catch him. Beating Tulsa by 7 worries me to no end. I agree. It is early. Like, if you're worried about how they'll perform the whole season, I don't know. I think they'll be okay, better than you think, just because obviously for the Red River rivalry game every year they get up, whether they've gone 1-4 or 4-0, 5-0, whatever. They're always up for that game. So there's still going to be a good team. The question is if it's a good team the whole season, or if it's a good team who can just kind of jump up and kind of bite at someone's heels and trip up another team that's supposed to be very good. I like what I see from Texas out of the production they're getting. They've got good running backs. It looks like they've got some good wide receivers as well. Like I said, Humphrey, 7 catches, 109 yards, and 15 yards a catch, and a touchdown, long of 40. That's really nice production there out of that. Now, I do worry a little bit about their consistency. Just because I haven't seen much of that yet in the first couple weeks, it sounds like. But we'll see. Texas should be better as the season wears on. But you got to think that for Tom Herman, what's the phrase I'm looking for? Certainly the honeymoon period is over. Now you got to start thinking that the ice starts getting a little bit thin. Not saying by any means that, like, hey, he's on the hot seat. It's too early for that. But definitely at this point, people are like, okay, last year was a mulligan season for you. This year, there were people picking Texas to win the national title. Now, I said that they were insane people, but there were people nevertheless picking Texas to win the national title. And 2 weeks in, they look about as insane as I thought they did. So we'll see. Let's see how Texas's defense did, just since I'm starting off with Texas based on the first couple comments here. So Tulsa's quarterbacks had, Skipper, 12 for 24, 153, 1-2. So they did a pretty good job holding him in check, actually. So that's good for them. Good for the Texas defense. Only 50% completion, 1 touchdown, but 2 picks. Then on the ground, 22 rushes for 66 yards. So yeah, even in that regard, the Brooks running back got 2 touchdowns, but at the very least, Texas was able to hold him in check, only 3 yards an average. That's not going to get it done. Skipper, the quarterback, also went 7 carries for 54 yards, so that part wasn't great. But at the same time, it's the quarterback. He's a little bit of a different setup, a little bit of a different animal, if you will, than your standard players are, your running backs in that regard. So, yeah, and then no receiver really exploded off the page either. They got one guy, Stokes, going 3 catches for 62 yards, but no touchdowns. So, Texas's defense looks like it was decent, at least. So I am curious how they only won that game 28-21. That's frankly not acceptable. I thought Texas was going to run away with this game. I thought this would be one of those games where Texas maybe starts a little slow, but ultimately wins something like 42-14 or 21, and not the case. So I don't know, some concern there if you're a Longhorn fan. Looking over to the Oklahoma game here, which will be the only other game that I really go in depth on. Like I said, this is going to be a shorter episode for this as well. This one will probably only be about 20 minutes, total. So Oklahoma played the UCLA Bruins in Norman, I should say. And this game was not at all the same as Week 1 for OU versus FAU. Week 1, OU looked like a machine out there. Nothing would ever stop them or slow them down. It was just incredible how they were running offensively and defensively. The one complaint I had last week, and I had it again this week, they did not create turnovers. And that's something that if their defense is going to be very good, they have to be able to do. And they have not to me yet shown they can do that. So that's the remaining task for them. But to me, 2 big storylines come out of this game. One, Kyler Murray shows me that he can make some dazzling plays. Some of his passes were just phenomenal. Phenomenal passes yesterday. Dropping it in a bread basket, 45 yards down the field. Beautiful throws. OU has phenomenal receivers. Marquise Hollywood Brown looks like he's elevated his game. CeeDee Lamb made what would have been the catch of the year and this goes again to the inconsistency a little bit I was pointing to with Kyler Murray. If Kyler Murray doesn't throw the ball so far over CeeDee Lamb's head, CeeDee Lamb still nearly saved him with what would have been the catch of the year had he been able to get his foot down inbounds. But the pass was so bad that CeeDee Lamb going up and just snatching it Odell Beckham style, one hand out of the air. He led him a little too far. If he had been able to get his foot down in bounds, that would have been the catch of the year, I think. So, and Lamb had another one-handed catch earlier in the game where it was a pass thrown behind him, and he just reaches back and at a full run, snags it and goes. And it's incredible. I mean, the athletes OU has and the recruits they have, they're only getting better with their class next year. Defense looks good. Yes, they give up 21 in this game, but the final 2 touchdowns meant nothing. OU, for much of the game, held them to 7. And that was an interesting thing because it was the second series of the game for UCLA. OU got them dead to rights, 3rd and long in their own territory, and then a busted coverage allows a 67 or 63-yard completion. And then for the rest of that drive, UCLA had OU back on its heels like, oh, whoa, what's happening here? So that's the part for that I look at is I think that UCLA, they will be good in a couple years under Chip Kelly. They might be really good next year. Not like contender good, but they'll be certainly a top 25 team next year. I like a lot what I saw from them. Their defensive front impressed me a little bit. But that brings me to the second thing that stood out for me in this game, and that was the OU run game was not good yesterday. As phenomenal as it was in week 1, Rodney Anderson going 5 for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, first of all, he leaves the game in the first quarter with what sounds like it's going to be a season-ending injury. That's a shame for him, and that guy he's a senior, and 3 of his 4 seasons will have now ended with season-ending injuries. As a freshman in 2015, he breaks his leg. He was in the same class as P. Ryan and Mixon, for the record. Breaks his leg. And then the next year, he fractures in the spring game. He fractures a bone in his neck. So breaks his leg, breaks his neck. Then last year, he got off to a slow start. And then in that Kansas State game, he exploded out of nowhere. And suddenly, OU, dead sprint to the playoff from there after the Iowa State game. And Rodney Anderson in the final 8 games goes for over 1,000 yards. And his production was just otherworldly last year. And week 1 this year, it looked like he was going to keep that pace. I thought he should have gone pro for his own interest this past offseason, like in this last draft, should have been in it. But he wanted to stick with OU, and he wanted to try and win a national championship. And that's commendable, man. But now that he's had what sounds like an ACL tear, I don't know what his draft stock is going to be, but he is certainly not a first or second round talent at this point like he would have been had he gone out then. Because that's the thing. When he's healthy, I think he's better than Joe Mixon. I really do. Joe Mixon was the prize OU running back of 2 drafts ago. I think Rodney Anderson, if healthy, is better than Joe Mixon. He's bigger, he's stronger, he looks just as fast, and he's a great receiving back as well. I don't know if he has quite the same agility, but he brings more power to it. So maybe it's not quite an equal equation to balance the two, but this is going to drastically hurt Rodney Anderson, and it's going to hurt OU because he was the star of this team, moving forward. He was a Heisman contender being hyped up and did nothing to hurt himself last week. Like I said, only 5 touches, but 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So if he's done, that's heartbreaking for him, and that's really hard on OU in there. To address Kent's point, a playoff contender, that's going to hurt their chances if their best weapon is gone. Now, in the game, Kyler Murray goes 19 of 33. Not a great percentage. Obviously, he was 9 of 11 the first week. He started slow in this game, and OU as an offense, I thought, started slow. And it's because the run game wasn't there. And so you saw Kyler make some brilliant plays, but then he would have a couple really bad plays where his timing was bad or whatever. Now, you're talking about a guy who, despite this being like his 4th year in college football, you're talking about a guy who had 5 starts before this. So I think that's the big part of it, is he just hasn't had the repetition in live game scenarios to give him that feel. But as far as, despite the fact that I swear he is 5'8" and a bucket of chicken or something like that, he's like, that's standing on my expression's going all over the place. Standing on the bucket. I was trying to say 5'8" if he's standing on a stool. That's what I was looking for, a stool. I was thinking of something along those height line, and I couldn't think of it. He's really short is what I'm trying to say. And He looks like a middle schooler out there at quarterback, but dude can sling it. Dude is elusive as all get out, and his future is obviously in baseball anyway, so if he can stay healthy for a whole year, OU still has a dynamic playmaker back there, more dynamic than Baker, but certainly not the passer that Baker Mayfield is, and nothing in the way of his efficiency. But Kyler goes 19 of 33 for 306 yards, 9 yards a pop, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, also ran for 2 more touchdowns. The interception was one of his bad throws. He had some other ones I mentioned earlier, including one that could have been picked where his timing was just abysmal. He waited until the receiver broke out of his route, turned and stopped to then throw him the ball, and the receiver's just stuck waiting on it while 2 guys close in on him. Kyler also led OU in rushing yesterday, 10 for 69, 2 touchdowns. 4th running back to go into the game for OU, TJ Pledger, 7 for 45. He led the team and the team's running backs yesterday. That's not acceptable. Then you have the 3rd running back, Marcellus Sutton. He's a senior, 5 for 33 and a touchdown. Rodney Anderson, before he left with the injury that probably ends his OU career, goes 6 for 19, so only 3.2 a pop. He did have a touchdown, but his long was a 10-yard run. Sip to Truth 34, what's up, man? And then Trey Sermon, who he was the starter for OU for much of the year last year, including their upset victory at Ohio State. He only goes 7 for 13. So OU's running game was really, really bad yesterday. And it hurt them. It absolutely hurt them because it forced Kyler to have to do more. Now, because he has a lot of ability, even if he doesn't have a lot of experience, and because he has phenomenal receivers, he was able to do a little something. Like I said earlier, CeeDee Lamb targeted 9 times, 7 catches, 146 yards, about 21 a pop, 20.9 yards on average, 1 touchdown with a long of 45. Marquise Hollywood Brown, he didn't leave the game, but he had cramps at some point in his calf, and it seemed like he wasn't quite right after that. But thankfully, the game was so far out of reach at that point, it was like 35-7, that they didn't even worry really about getting him the ball again beyond that. So he still goes. Now, he's targeted 10 times, only 4 catches. Last week, it was like the opposite. Last week, it was like the CD thing where he was targeted like 9 times for 7 catches. This time, a much worse completion percentage to him. 88 yards, though, 22 a pop, 1 touchdown, a long of 58. Those 2 really carried it for OU. Calcaterra, 3 for 26. Miller, 2 for 25 and a touchdown. No one else exploded off the page in that way, but they have 2 damn good receivers, and the OU defense does look a lot better to me than they were last year. I still think they're not quite there, though. I think next year is going to be OU's next real chance to compete. I could be wrong, but the defense isn't creating turnovers. They have to play a lot of young guys, and at some point that typically creates some kind of issue for you. So that's something to watch for them. And then, of course, like I said, if you lose Rodney Anderson for the year, which hasn't been made official yet, but it does appear that that's going to be the case, that's it for OU's situation. If their best player, their guy that makes that offense go, and who, yes, Baker was the Heisman Trophy winner last year, but it was Rodney Anderson's emergence that took OU from being just a very good team to being an elite, one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the country last year. Obviously, they finished number 3. They should have beaten Georgia. I will continue to stand on that hill until I die. I will die on that hill. But they didn't, and it is what it is. So, let's see here. Sip the truth. Is Randy going to get suspended again? Very likely, and he's lifetime ban if he does. So I'm going to get into all that during the Cowboy Watch Party I'm doing later today. That's why I'm doing these shows early today, because I'm going to be very busy. So let me get into some of the other Big 12 scores here. Adam Proctor, what's up? West Virginia run game looked good. 4 good backs. Letty Brown is a beast and just a freshman. Yeah, West Virginia is, I think, West Virginia, I said this last week, I stand by it. West Virginia is the team to watch in the Big 12. If you're not going to lean on Oklahoma, and they're the favorite right now, but I would argue that with the Rodney Anderson injury, that narrows even more between them and West Virginia. West Virginia is my dark horse to win the Big 12 this year. And I don't know how long it's going to be viewed as the dark horse. I think by week 4 or 5, people are going to start looking at them and you're going to start having real debate about which team is better. I think OU at full strength is potentially one of the best teams in the country, but they're not going to be full strength anymore. And they, like I said, have to rely on a lot of young guys who, as good as they look so far, they've played 2 games. It's going to be very different when you have people start game planning for you and taking away what makes you so dynamic. So, but the future looks bright for OU's defense, which is just refreshing as all get out to say. So let me hit on some of these West Virginia numbers here. Oh, you played Youngstown State, though. Come on, son. I still think it's a very good team, and they're going to compete, but this is a cupcake matchup if ever there was one. Will Grier goes 21 of 26 for 332, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. That was one of the other things for OU that I forgot to mention for the defense. They had 6 sacks and 12 tackles for loss yesterday, which is really nice as well. That popped into my head when I saw the Will Grier stat saying he was only sacked once for 4 yards. So then your backup played as well. That's whatever. That's end of the game kind of stuff. Letty Brown, 15 for 115, 7.7 a pop, and a touchdown. That's really nice. And what impresses me more about that number, Adam, is that his long was only 18, which means he was just consistent grinding. Sometimes when you see a guy with a high average like that on such a few number of carries, it tends to suggest that, he pops like a 70-yarder or a 60-yarder, and it skews his numbers the rest of the way. He might have been running into a brick wall for most of the day beyond that, but because he got that one popped run, his numbers look better. That's not the case with what I'm seeing here. Long of 18 and 15 carries, 115 yards, that's legit. That is a very good day. And if he's a freshman, then yeah, that guy's going to be a force running back to be reckoned with in the Big 12 for the next 2 or 3 years. Let's see. Then you got Petaway here, 12 for 77 as well. That's very good production. Colt, 11 for 76. Man, West Virginia's got some running backs. That's impressive. Yeah, that's one of the other things. That's been OU's advantage the last couple of years as well, is that they've had a deeper running back stable than almost anybody else. So West Virginia being able to kind of match that is going to only work to their advantage. If it works like OU did, then you're going to see a situation where for this stretch of games, it's going to be this guy who's leading it, like Trey Sermon led the start of last year. Then there was a stretch where Abdul Adams, who's no longer with OU, he transferred, where he was the guy. And then it flipped to Rodney Brown, and in the last 8 games, he just took over and dominated. But yeah, that could be how it works. Or maybe Letty is your number 1 back, and it's really just the other guys vying for the backup carries at that point. But I very much like the carries I see here from West Virginia, that you got 3 backs with at least 11 carries. That's very good balance, and that's only going to help your production as well. I mean, hell, Petaway and McCoy both had longer runs than Brown, 20 and 26 respectively, so that's really good for them. For the receivers, Sims, wow, 9 targets, 8 catches, 119, long of 31. Jennings, 7 targets, 6 catches, 97 yards, 3 touchdowns. Wow, okay. I see you, Jennings. Yeah, West Virginia's offense looks legit. Now, again, Youngstown State, I don't know. I know so little about Youngstown State. Bleacher Report apparently doesn't even know. I don't think you'll be able to see that, but Bleacher Report doesn't even know what their logo is, and it's literally the Bleacher Report logo above their YSU. That's funny. But yeah, 52-17 winner for West Virginia. That's going to make them good. Let's see here. Oh, I just saw Kent saying he's got to head to work. Thanks for watching, Kent. You were on the last stream earlier. Appreciate you, buddy. Got to get back to work, guys. Love your show. I'll see you around 3. Go Zeke. All right, that's what's up. Oh, man. Let me just rattle off some of these other scores in the Big 12 here. Not going to go deep dive on them because I got to start getting stuff ready for my Cowboys watch party at Henry's Tavern today. I'm going to be hosting that. I feel like a broken record because I keep reciting it, but We're going to be doing a live stream at Henry's Tavern today for the Cowboys game. I will be live the entire game, commentating, giving you my thoughts, my analysis. I'll be with Law Nation as well, and that's at 3:25 kick, Henry's Tavern in Plano, Texas. Come out and see us, support us. We're going to be live, like Law says, live like 95 on every stinking platform you can imagine. YouTube, Facebook. It's going to be the Dallas Prospect YouTube, the Fantom. It's Fantom's event, Fantom. Fantom's YouTube page as well. And then we'll on Facebook. We'll be on Dallas Prospect, Law Nation, Silver and Blue Nation, Big Game James, Fantom, and like 4 or 5 other pages. So, I mean, we're going to have thousands of people at the very least tuning in and watching this. So, no pressure. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see how it goes. So, that's at 3:30, but I'm going to have to start setting up here fairly soon. Let's see here. So, let me run through the rest of the Big 12. TCU versus SMU. TCU wins 42-12. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm disappointed with TCU. I know this is a rivalry game, and you can generally throw those out as far as the score, but this was an ugly, ugly game for what I saw of much of the first half, and TCU's offense does not look that great to me. I don't think that their defense is still going to be good, but I don't look at TCU and think that they're the threat to win the Big 12 other than OU like I did last year. Last year, it was obviously them and OU, but Oklahoma State made noise for a while last year too. But I don't view TCU in that light. I think they took a step back. They're still good. They can still trip you up if you're not careful, but West Virginia has absolutely supplanted them at this point as far as the threat. Kansas State gets swamped by number 18 Mississippi State. No shock there. Kansas State barely beat South Dakota last week, so they had to go 15-0, outscore them 15-0 in the fourth quarter to come back at home and beat a Division II team. Like, that's just pitiful, man. Come on, son. So I'm not even worried about that. Kansas State, I think, is going to be a very team this year. As Kent Ketchum mentioned earlier as well, Kansas ended a ridiculous losing streak. It's their first road win in 9 years, but they had like an NCAA record, like 46 straight losses, which is insane to think about. Wait, that can't be right. It can't be 46. No. Can't be 46. They beat Texas. So it must be 46 road games. That's what I'm thinking. Because they beat Texas and Strong's last year. Yeah. So they had 46 straight road losses, which is, I guess, the 9 years, and then finally get a road win at Central Michigan yesterday, 31-7. Woohoo! Rock Chalk Jayhawk, that's what's up. That's about all the enthusiasm I can get for that. If it wasn't for their basketball program, I really question whether they would even be in the Big 12 anymore. At some point, they've thought about it. Like, can we just kick the football team out of the conference and, like, replace them with BYU or something at least? Someone at least decent. Louisville. Let's see. Speaking of scrubs, Texas Tech wins 77 at home against Lamar. My father-in-law went to Lamar. I didn't even realize they had a football team. So, yeah. You're not impressing me, Cliff Kingsbury. That's a weak schedule. Weak. Say Primetime says Mississippi State will make the playoffs. That would be a very pleasant surprise, but they got a really, really tough road. They got to get through Bama and Georgia to do that. Well, the SEC will probably get a chance at sending 2 again, in which case they'll have to get through at least one of those teams and have, I would say for them, to get there, they'd pretty much have to be undefeated. I don't think they could survive a loss and still get by, but who knows? Iowa State, because their home opener was canceled due to weather, they go to Iowa and lose 13-3. I'll be honest with you, I know it was their first game and it was on the road and Iowa's not bad. I'm surprised by Iowa State's performance in the opener, because I think that they were, I had them as one of those teams to watch in the Big 12 this year. Even though they're not ranked, I looked at them and I said, they are very well coached. Last year they beat, within like a 3-week span, number 3 OU and number 4 TCU. And so I looked at them and said, they could go toe-to-toe again this year with some of these teams. They'll get a boost from that, and they could be better. But it doesn't appear that, at least in one sample size, that's the case. They lose a low-scoring game, and it's kind of a lethargic performance on their part from an offensive perspective. So that's like an NFL score game, and for them to do that in college football is not going to help them. Baylor beats UTSA 37-20 at UTSA. Ooh, Baylor. It's going to be a while, I think, before they're good again, but we'll see. We'll have to see. Not even going to get into that. Oklahoma State beats down South Alabama. It's South Alabama. I'm not worried about that. 55-13 is that score. And I mentioned earlier, Texas barely beats Tulsa 28-21. So, very, very uneven performance for the Big 12 this week. Certainly a step back from where they were last week. And other than West Virginia still looking very good, I don't feel very strong about the Big 12 as a conference this week compared to how I felt after week 1. I think OU didn't look good in the run game, and now they lose their best player. That's going to hurt them, and that's going to hurt the conference's chances of sending someone to the playoff. West Virginia could win the conference this year, but I don't know that they'll have an unblemished record, which, because their name value doesn't have the same weight as Oklahoma's, they're not going to be able to get over and get into the playoffs with a single blemish like Oklahoma could. Or if Texas was a one-loss team and they won the conference, they could probably get away with that too. So it's all subjective. It's all something we're going to have to see, but my gut tells me this is probably a little bit of a down year for the Big 12, which would not be a shock. I think that would have been probably the most likely expectation given. And when I say down year for the conference, I just mean no one in the playoff, not represented in the playoff. And I think that was probably the most likely outcome from the very beginning. So it is what it is. But that's all my time for this episode, guys. Thank you for watching. Come out to Henry's Tavern